What's going on? It's Seth back again with another episode of Defense Wins Fantasy, part of the Fantasyholics Podcast Network. Wanted to finish up the NFC breakouts, busts, and players to watch tonight with the NFC East. Very exciting information on this one. Actually, there's a couple of my preferred teams to find some good IDP players on. But first, I wanted to talk about trading when it comes to an IDP league. Now, in the leagues that I proclaim are better, individual defensive players are traded for, not just kind of part of a deal. But when it comes to, a standard maybe 1 point per tackle type of league, a couple points per sack, they're scoring so many fewer points than the offensive players, it can kind of be an afterthought for a lot of owners. Yeah, they have to play somebody and they know some big names, but having the IDP league, it multiplies the amount of players that the average owner needs to know by just a multitude that most people are not going to be doing all of the research on it. So you could use this to your advantage. If you're looking for an upgrade at wide receiver or maybe even a lateral move due to youth, trying to go a little younger or something like that, throw in one of their defensive players that maybe doesn't have a big name, but has big stats or is now in a better position because the linebacker that was ahead of them went to free agency and now they're the starter, or it's their second year in the league and they're going to be, getting more snaps, or you've looked at their snap percentage and it went up at the end of the year, so they're trending upward. All these things where if you do just a little bit more research than your opponent or your trade partner, you can really capitalize on getting some of these really solid players for pennies on the dollar. I mean, just if you have a big name that's no longer as valuable as they once were because you've had them on your team and you saw that the production has dipped some, try moving them for a younger guy or somebody that's up and coming. And like I said, if you do a little bit more research, just kind of spend 15 minutes Googling some stats and whatnot and snap counts, you could really put yourself in a great situation when it comes to trading in those IDP leagues. Because once again, they are scoring less points than the other players, but if you can get a guy that's scoring 2 more points per game than your opponent's linebacker or your opponent's safety, now you're in business. And if you have a down week on offense, you can use that consistency of your defense to carry you into some victories, or at least make sure that you're making the playoffs by the end of the year. So it's something that do not forget about. And it's very easy to do when you have leagues that, like I said, the scoring differences. Your best player on offense is, running back is scoring 280 points on the season, and one of the best linebackers in the league is scoring like 140. It's crazy that it's that big of a difference, but it's all about how the scoring is set up. It still means that there's going to be variation between, the number 1 guy and the number 20 guy in that position. And you have to have that understanding that there's still value there because you all are playing them. So if you can gain 2 points, who cares if you're gaining 2 points on your running back or gaining 2 points on your linebacker? You're still outscoring your opponent's team any way you slice it. So make sure that when you're doing trades, you're looking at maybe just a little bit of an add-on because you've done a little bit more research than your trade partner has. Now, diving in to the NFC East, as I stated, this was the last of the NFC set of teams that we're going to do our bust, breakouts, and players to watch. Once again, players to watch are people that I'm interested in. I think that have a very big window, kind of a wild card, if you will, that they could either ascend or they could, not actually break out per se. But some of them I'll tell you maybe we should pick up right now. Some of them will tell you maybe we need to watch because it might not be worth the value. But all of them are people that we want to make sure that we know their names and that we're aware of them when it comes time to play football in the fall. We're going to start with the Giants tonight. My bust player is Tay Crowder, linebacker. Hey, this guy led the team in tackles last year with 130 tackles. But do you know why? Blake Martinez tore his ACL in week 3. Tay only had 3 tackles in each of the games before Martinez got hurt. Not exactly what I would call ideal numbers, So that's basically he's averaging, 50, 60 tackles for the entire season-ish, and he ended up with 130. Now, when Martinez was healthy, Tay only averaged 48% of the snaps, which is also not good. As soon as Martinez was injured, 100% of the snaps Crowder got. He's going to go back to a backup role this year. And so we need to understand that having this top guy last year, a guy that finished in the top 20 regarding fantasy points and probably top 10 in overall tackles in the league last year, is not going to have the value that he had last year. He will have value. Don't get me wrong. He's younger. He's ascending, but they paid Blake Martinez to come in and be the lead of that defense. Towards the ACL, wasn't able to do it. Tay Crowder stepped in, was great, but the defense still wasn't really good. They need Martinez on the field, and Martinez should be ready by week 1 because of when he tore his ACL. Once again, though, keep an eye on him because Martinez is slow or ends up, aggravating the injury. We know he can come in and he can get a lot of tackles. Once again, that's Tay Crowder, linebacker for the Giants, that I think is going to be a bust because there's no way he's going to get to that 130 tackles he had last year. My breakout player is Azeez Ojulari, linebacker / edge rusher for the Giants. Now, last year was his rookie year in which he had 49 tackles and 8 sacks as a rookie. 8 sacks as a rookie. You'll love to see it. And he did that playing 66% of the snaps last year. This offseason, there's already been talk about him adding 10 pounds to be better against the run, which means he can stay on the field on those early downs, not just as a pass rusher on the late downs. And he's extremely valuable if he's defensive line eligible in your league. So if you play a DL linebacker defensive back league, take a look at Azeez Ojulari and make sure that he's not just linebacker. If he's linebacker / DL, pick him up. You're getting those tackles as a defensive line. You're not going to get a lot of tackles, and being able to get 49 last year on just 66% of the snaps, I expect him to get into the 70s, and hopefully he'll be around 12 sacks this year. Just by progression, getting better, getting stronger, understanding the league better. Like I said, for a rookie pass rusher, this is something I really found interesting about him, is that his fantasy points weren't boom or bust. They were pretty balanced. They were, he had some down games. I'm not going to say he didn't have any, but when he put up points, they were pretty even across the board, which consistency is huge with players because it's hard when you're a sack master to be consistent. So if you can get a guy that is known for sacking the quarterback, but also is going to have a high floor week to week, that just is a cherry on top. So once again, that's Azeez Ojulari, linebacker / edge rusher for the Giants. Now, once again, if he's D-line eligible, pick that dude up. Now, my player to watch is an interesting one. It's Justin Ellis, defensive tackle. He's a new signing to the team, which is something that I very rarely kind of do with my players to watch because I feel like it's hard to even say, hey, unless they're coming from, a scheme that followed to this team, kind of like Mohamed did for the Bears when he went from the Colts to the Bears with their head coach. But Justin Ellis is a complete wild card pickup. I'm going to be honest about that. And only pick him up if the league has defensive tackle spots. D-end, he's D-line. If it's just D-line only, he's not going to give you value. But if you have defensive tackle spots, last year the defensive tackle for the Giants, Austin Johnson, had 72 tackles as a defensive tackle. 72 tackles is monstrous. And that was good for top 5 in tackles of the position last year. There are concerns because it is a new defensive scheme. They picked up 4 D tackles via draft and undrafted free agency, Justin Ellis being one of them. But Justin Ellis is the one that has the most skilled player profile expectations to get the starting role. The other guys were drafted late. One of them was drafted late. The rest of them were free agent, undrafted free agents. Let me say that correctly, that they added. And that could just be camp bodies. But he's worth keeping an eye on. Not worth picking up the player up at this point. Look for news coming out of OTAs on Justin Ellis, D tackle. And check the depth chart as we get closer to September. And if he's, number one on that chart, there's opportunity for him to be a tackle hoss for this team at the D tackle spot. I know it's crazy, but you can get a lot of points that way. We're going to move on to the Washington Commanders. They had so many opportunities for a better team name, but it is what it is. We're stuck with Commanders. So Washington's bust player. Before I actually get into the bust player, though, I want to go ahead and make this point made, that this is one of my favorite teams for IDP value. They have a lot of even high-end scoring across the board from these guys from the past couple years, really. So take that with what you will, is that, one, it's hard to find guys that I think are going to bust because I think that there's a great scheme set up for everybody to be involved in tackling and sacks and everything like that. But that being said, my bust player is Chase Young. The Predator's a heck of a talent, Coming off of a really bad ACL injury. He's going into his third year. And he tore that ACL in week 10 last year. But let's look deeper. Before his injury, Chase Young had 1.5 sacks on the year in 10 games. We'll even say 9 games because he got injured in the 10th. 9 games for a sack and a half for a number 2 overall pick. Only had 1 game above 11 points. So he wasn't getting you points on the tackling levels. In fact, he didn't improve on tackling numbers. In fact, he regressed in all major categories up to that point in the season. If you would break it out to a 17-game season, he wasn't coming close to any of his statistics from his rookie year. So there's something more than just the injury in year 2 that was going on with Chase Young. Because the rest of the team was very successful when it comes to IDP scoring. So was that due to him just getting so much, focus, being double-teamed, the opposing teams basically scheming him out of the game, allowing other people to thrive? I'm not telling you to go out and trade him, but I am telling you to not trade for him. If someone gives you a great offer and you have Chase Young, probably moving on. And that's just me. I get it. He is a big-ticket name. But it just doesn't feel right about him right now. And I just have this gut feeling that something just seems off. And I don't know what it is. And I could be completely wrong on this. But watching him play last year, it was not the same guy that we saw in his rookie year. So I just personally do not feel good about him right now. And I would not be moving for him. Not saying trade him, but I wouldn't be trading for him. So that's my bust, Chase Young, defensive end for the Washington Commanders. Now my breakout player is actually just a really good real-life football player. That's Cameron Curl, safety. Landon Collins is off the team this year, not re-signed, I think, anywhere right now. So Curl is posed for a breakout year. He's a third-year player, and he's got a nose for the football. Last year, he played 80% of the snaps, and had 93 tackles. He's going to be the starter this year. He's going to get more snaps, more reps. I expect over 100 tackles this year, which is great for a safety. High floor, even higher ceiling. Cameron Curl has the makings of the next big tackling guy coming into that third year, ready to prove, getting close to that next contract negotiation. I expect him to play next to Bobby McCain and lead this secondary in tackles. Player to watch this year? Jamin Davis. First-round draft pick last year out of Kentucky. A lot of question marks on taking him over some of the other guys. Has the athletic profile, and that was the focus. But they said he was raw. They knew he was raw. He played 55% of the snaps as a rookie. But in that 55%, he had 76 tackles and 1 sack. Good numbers for 50% of the game, right? You double that up, and you're talking about a stud. They put the first-round draft capital in him, as I stated before. He's going to get the opportunity. He's an athletic linebacker that can stay on the field on third downs. But there are some cons, and that's why he's my players to watch. Cole Holcomb had a monstrous year last year, and John Bostic was injured last year, and he's going to be tough competition for Jamin Davis to get on the field. Davis really struggled understanding the defense. That has been brought to light. They haven't been shy about that. And he struggles, being instinctive and reading the offense. I think the game was just a little fast for him as his rookie year. But he has the makings of being a really good player, but he has to put it all together. He's got to shore up these items and avoid being a liability on the floor, or on the field, rather, before he gets Ron Rivera's trust fully. Once again, though, it's a great opportunity for an athletic player like Jamin Davis. Now moving on to the Eagles. Now my bust player is Nakobe Dean, linebacker. He's a rookie linebacker out of Georgia. He has all the makings to be a stud linebacker in the NFL. However, he's a bit undersized. I'm not too concerned about that because, I'm a absolute believer that Zach Thomas showed everybody that you don't have to be the biggest dude to be the biggest dude on the field at the time. That dude could hit anybody and wasn't scared. Nakobe Dean reminds me a lot of Zach Thomas. But he had medical red flags that had him slip to the third round. It wasn't just because of his being undersized, which to me would be, okay, yeah, that's not a big deal to me. I think heart is more important. And part of why he had medical red flags is because of Nakobe Dean's heart. He wanted to play for Georgia. He wanted to win that national championship. He did not want to show injured and not be able to play. That being said, he's still got a pectoral issue that made him not able to perform at the combine. So yeah, it's a definite risk on why he slipped. There are rumors that he might not even be playing his rookie year because they need him to heal up and get right. No solace to that, no factual information behind that, just rumors out there like everything is at this point in the NFL season. But he was, like I said, he was once thought of a first-round player and still has a lot of hype coming into this season on the Eagles. The Eagles always need linebacker help. It is the perfect situation to get a first-round value guy in the third round. But they also re-signed Kazir White, and then they signed Hassan Reddick. Dean will not get a high percentage of the snaps without injury in year one. That's my prediction. And this guy will be a star in the NFL. That's also my prediction. And on a team that is, like I said, needed a linebacker for a long time to be a difference maker. But I think his time is going to come in year two for the breakout rather than year one for Nakobe Dean. So the hype train is going to have to pull into the station and wait until 2023. Now, my breakout player is Josh Sweat, defensive end. We've seen a sprinkling of his ability the past few years. He has missed having consistency from game to game, but last year he had career high in sacks and tackles. 7.5 sacks, 45 tackles last year. And with Jordan Davis now manning the middle like a giant monster he is, Sweat should be free to take on one-on-ones this year because if you don't double-team Jordan Davis, then he's going to just kill your offensive line. Also, early last year, September, he signed a 3-year, $40 million extension. They believe in the talent. They have faith in the player. And the other defensive ends on this team are aging out. Brandon Graham, he's up there. Bennett has been injured the last couple of years, and he's kind of a little bit more down. Sweat is he is the prime breakout candidate for this team this year to really take advantage coming off the defensive end. Now, my player to watch, it's another rookie. I just spoke about him, Jordan Davis. Dude, this guy's not human, man. I don't understand how you can be this big, this heavy, and run this fast. He is a unicorn-type player. So how do you grade him? Especially do I think he's going to be a great NFL player? Yes. Yes, I do. Do I think he's going to be really good in fantasy? I don't know. Is he just going to be a space eater? It takes up 2 to 3 blockers and lets everybody else wreak havoc on the offense? Or is he going to be a guy that really gets to being a sack master that can just go right up the middle and just destroy offensive lines and quarterbacks? Honestly, he could go either way. Maybe a little bit of both. But personally, I lean a little bit more towards the non-fantasy value player. But once again, he is just an absolute freak athlete. The likes of which I don't know if we've ever seen a guy with this size speed profile. And I could be just easily forgetting somebody. But it's not even like Aaron Donald. This dude's 80 pounds heavier than Aaron Donald, all right? Like, Donald's a smaller guy that's super strong. This guy is another 80 freaking pounds and runs a sub 540-yard dash. Listen, he's going to be drafted to an IDP team in your leagues if you haven't had rookie drafts yet, if you have a startup draft. Somebody's going to draft him because, one, name value. He's been a hot name through this entire draft process. 2, all the things I said about him just being an absolute not human unicorn, freak athlete type player, whatever you want to call him, just huge dude. And if your league does not separate, as I said before, D tackles and D ends, i.e. they just have the D line only, I'd probably be more willing to let somebody else take him on his team. Because I'm more interested at Jordan Davis if you have a defensive tackle spot in your league. Because compared to other D tackles, I think he's going to have good value. Compared to other D ends, like, the Myles Garrett's, the Joey Bosa's, the Nick Bosa's, those guys, I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with them in sacks and even maybe tackles, like I said. If they're just going to say, hey, we got to double team Jordan Davis every day, it's great for his team. The Eagles will be successful because of Jordan Davis, but I don't think Jordan Davis's fantasy value will be successful if that's the path that the offensives take to basically just try to eliminate him, whether it takes 1, 2, or 3 guys. That could be that's their prerogative. But Jordan Davis is definitely a player to watch just because he's going to be fun to watch. Now on to the final team of the NFC East. How about them Cowboys? Great defensive year last year. And going straight into the bust player, it's Trevin Diggs, cornerback. Honestly, all of the cornerbacks on this team, I think, could be a bust take. They had 3 cornerbacks in the top 20 for all cornerback scoring last year. 3. You don't get that on offenses with wide receivers like ever, but they had 3 guys. The highest being Diggs. And he had 11 picks. 2 of them returned to the house, 52 tackles. Now in 2020, he had 58 tackles in just 12 games. And interceptions are a difficult stat to predict. And coming off a massive 11 interception season, everybody knows regression is coming. So what my concern with Diggs is, he does not have the tackle numbers to maintain a dominance at that position. He doesn't have a high enough floor to be able to maintain value, in my opinion. I expect him to drop completely out of the top 20 in IDP cornerbacks this year. And I just think that it's just based upon he's not gonna get 11 picks. If he gets 11 picks again this year, God bless him, and he's figured something out. But he's also the guy that gave up over 1,000 yards passing last year too. Which, don't get me wrong, fantasy-wise, that is valuable if you're tackling the guy. But Diggs makes the jump for the interception and lets the guy go take the touchdown. Take it to the house, you know. He'll jump the out route and the guy will go up the sidelines, score the touchdown. Probably why the other cornerbacks got so many fantasy points, because they had to tackle Diggs' dude. I don't know. That part's just me being facetious. But I just don't think that he has a high enough floor to be valuable this year. So Trevin Diggs, cornerback for the Dallas Cowboys, is my bust player for the Dallas Cowboys there. Now, my breakout player seems to be a trend. I got another defensive tackle. I think I've talked about defensive tackle on every team, which, once again, D-line, I get it. Defensive tackles aren't exciting in D-line, so split it. D-tackle, D-end. If your site doesn't split it up, ask them to. If they still don't have it, give me a shout. I got about 3 or 4 sites that if they want to sponsor me, I'll go ahead and tell you all day which ones they are. But there are sites out there that allow you to play individual positions that help get a little bit more of the talent out there. But Neville Gallimore is my D tackle. He missed all but 5 games in 2021. But in those 5 games, he had 13 tackles. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a lot for a D tackle. And 1.5 sacks. This was all by playing 40% of the snaps in those games as well. Came back late, so he was coming back from the injury, easing the back end. This former third-round pick is poised for a breakout season. He's a big-body defensive tackle, and he's shown flashes of disruptiveness. And as a D tackle, he'll add valuable depth to a starting potential to your roster. He's a guy that I'm not going to say is going to be your starter every week, but you need to have a second guy on your bench. And Neville Gallimore is a guy that nobody's looking at because he scored 55 points last year because he only played in 5 games. But he's going to add value. He's going to start the season for them, and I only see his snap numbers going up. Once again, if he's averaging, he could get easily to 18, 19 points in our scoring thing, but top 10, top 15 of his position, probably top 10 in my opinion, that he's going to be able to do if he's getting the tackles and they're doing what they were doing last year. Once again, that defense is coming back, trying to run it back. The key is to be stout up front, and Neville Gallimore gives you that opportunity, and he can get a lot of tackles in the process. Now, finally, my player to watch is one that honestly was not who I was expecting when I started watching tape and trying to figure this out. And it's Malik Hooker, the safety. It was a former first-round pick for the Indianapolis Colts. Really could never stay healthy there. He just signed a 2-year deal after having a 1-year deal with him last year. Signed a 2-year deal this offseason to stay with the Cowboys. On top of that, Keanu Neal left town this offseason, and Malik Hooker doubled his snap percentage from the start of the year to the end of the year games. He's got ball-hawking instincts, and he has the ability to make those big plays. But as far as concerns go, obviously the injury history. And as I said, he's less focused on tackles, more focused on center field, big play type of guy. Hooker has a chance to grab some interceptions and tackles this year, especially when Trevin Diggs gets burned in coverage. He can be the next man up to try to gain some of those points. But he's definitely a guy that piqued my interest more than I thought he would. And I don't even know if I can really tell you, pick him up now. Because I feel like it's let's see how it shakes out. Let's make sure he makes it through preseason healthy. Because I don't think anybody's grabbing him based on the snap percentages last year. because once again, they started low and they got higher and higher and higher, and then he started having valuable games. But it's definitely a person that when push comes to shove and you're looking for a safety that you need a boom game from, Malik Hooker could be that guy going into this year. I feel like he's leaning more towards gonna be a valuable asset versus not. But once again, a guy with this injury history, tread lightly. So that's it. That is all of the NFC's breakout busts and players to watch. We're going to continue on with the AFC after a 1-week break. Next week, we are going to do a mock draft, IDP, 2-round mock draft, based on essentially the scoring system that I brought out, where it has a lot more focus, because let's be honest, if we're doing a rookie 2-round mock in the standard IDP, which they should never be standard IDP scoring, we wouldn't have any IDP players in it. So I want to show you where that's going to mix in there. And we're going to have a special guest next week that's going to be bouncing off. We're going to go every other pick. I can't wait for it. I'm excited that you guys will be here to listen to it. But until then, keep looking up stats. Keep focusing on your IDP players. And as I said at the beginning of the show, start looking at some of those trades and just add on a little defensive player onto the back of that. Just something to throw in there, Maybe just throw this guy in and we'll have a deal kind of situation. But keep working on those. If you got any questions, anything is all, like we've always said, hit us up on Facebook. Shoot us a direct message that way. Any IDP questions, I'll be happy to help you out with. But until then, we'll see you next Thursday. Have a good one.
This podcast has been presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network.